Minister, did you ask your colleagues on the Chinese Communist Party Climate Committee whether or not they would quit interfering in Canadian democracy, or did you leave that alone?
I have spoken with human rights issues when I was in China just last week.
Canadian democracy, though.
Prochaine question.
Sentez-vous le tapis vous glisser sous les pieds? Vous avez vu les sondages?
Minister, did you ask?
Okay, so just so we understand, first of all, I think Minister Guilbeault, the honorable bullshit Minister Guilbeault, has a speech impediment, so people should be careful not to make fun of what might be a medical condition beyond his control. But how he spews the bullshit is different and to be distinguished from the bullshit that he spews. This is Minister of Environment and Climate Crisis, Stephen Guilbeault. He used to be the Minister of Heritage, for those of you who have been paying attention to Canadian politics. He was the one when they were championing Bill, whatever the Online Streaming Act is, that they were going to go after online streaming platforms who act like publishers and impose on them the provisions of the Canada Broadcasting Act, because the Canadian government wants to control the internet the same way it controls radio and television under the Broadcast Act and the CRTC, the Canadian Radio Telecommunications Company, whatever it's called. This is the same scumbag of a liar who said, we don't have any interest in governing social media accounts of individuals. This is just if you're acting like a broadcaster, we're going to come after you. And then when pressed on that, it said, well, if you had an exclusion in the law that excluded individual social media accounts, why did you secretly in the dead of night eliminate that exclusion? He had no answer for it. And lo and behold, the law ultimately ends up passing. And lo and behold, it will apply to individual social media accounts if they're sufficiently big. This guy shuffled out of Minister of Heritage and into Minister of whatever I just said it was, Minister of Environment. We're going to get there in a second. Cian Bexty, I think Cian Bexty's with the Counter Signal. I don't think he's with Rebel News anymore. Asks him a very good question. Let's hear the question. And then I don't think Guilbeault knew who was asking him the question, because he actually answered the first part of it with a non-answer. But let's just hear that again.
Ask your colleagues on the Chinese Communist Party Climate Committee whether or not they would quit interfering in Canadian democracy, or did you leave that alone?
I have spoken with human rights issues when I was in China.
Did you talk about Chinese interference in Canadian politics? I spoke with human rights. Thank you for answering the question nobody asked, Lisa Simpson.
Last week.
Canadian democracy, though.
Look at this arrogant, pompous prick. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That wasn't the question I asked you. And what does he do? Let's just look at his face. I look away from you. Prochaine question.
Prochaine question.
Like it's contempt. It's scorn. This is a public servant. And I've always been reluctant to refer to elected officials as public servants because it has a connotation that is not inappropriate for the term. This is an elected official who serves the people. The people are this criminal's boss. And I can call him criminal because I believe he was actually convicted or arrested of something we're going to get to in a second, 20 years ago. I'm saying it tongue in cheek. This is an elected official. The people are this man's boss. And this guy thinks he is the boss of the people. That's a free press, whether he likes it or not. He doesn't have the luxury, or at least I should say he ought not or should not have the luxury of saying, I ignore your question because it highlights corruption of the Liberal Party of Canada. Prochaine question. I disregard you, filth, pleb. Go away. I go now answer government-funded media. Stephen Guilbeault, you're going to notice a theme running through today's stream. Hypocrites, scoundrels, and liars. I was in the chat before coming here, vivabarneslaw.locals.com, and tongue-in-cheek saying, yeah, it's getting a little hard to smile. You know, like I have some neighbors who text me every Friday and they say, have a great weekend. And I say, yeah, man, it's just another week, another step lower in the what seems to be the endless depth of political, judicial depravity. So I say jokingly in our vivabarneslaw.locals.com community, yeah, it's getting hard to stay optimistic, even for someone who considers themselves to be the eternal optimist. Next question, Jinbo. Let's say, no, prochaine question. Hey, you get out of here. I'm surprised they didn't have him forcibly removed. You're going to notice the theme: scoundrels, hypocrites, and liars throughout today's stream. I figured we'd just start with that. Now, my son wanted you to see right here this beautiful work of art that he asked that I hang up in the backdrop and asked that I bring everyone's attention to. So I guess that also could be the white pill. It won't stay there forever, although I kind of like it. Looks kind of like a good framing. How's everyone doing? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a deep breath. We are angry. We are discouraged. We are politically, what's the word I'm looking for? I should have said politically discouraged. We are politically getting despaired. You take a deep breath. I'm not going to pull the Scott Adams drink out of the mug. Deep breath. Smile. It will change chemistry. Now, before we get going, let me just make sure that we are simultaneously streaming on Rumble. The channel is Viva Frei on Rumble. We're good. Let's make sure that we're simultaneously streaming on Locals. vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Are we good here? And what happens for those of you who are new to the channel, but I don't think anybody is, we end on YouTube after a bit, go over to Rumble exclusively with Locals, and then end and go over to Locals for an after party. We will take, I'm going to do an AMA, like just straight up, no tips or just AMA. I'll pick a question, answer it. Honestly. Just don't ask embarrassing questions, but I'll still answer those anyhow. Okay, so that's it. That was Stephen Guilbeault. I do not answer questions on Chinese Communist Party infiltration into the Canadian government. Prochaine question, next question. Some of you may or may not have heard that Canada has been going through climate crisis wildfires. It's an amazing thing that there have been wildfires, unprecedented wildfires, which can only be explained by climate crisis. It can only be solved by CO2 reductions and crippling the Canadian economy, crippling the Canadian way of life, crippling an otherwise free and democratic society, though I don't know if it ever was that, through climate crisis measures. The latest ban coming out of Canada, it's amazing. WD-40, not as a standalone object, but products that have aerosol levels of VOCs, volatile organic compounds above 10%, I think, banned as of January 1st. So aerosol WD-40 will be banned as of January 1st. Clyde Do Something, great Canadian channel, covered it. I'm going to pull up a bit of his explanation. But we're going to get there after we get to this climate crisis forest fires raging across Canada. And if you dare say, this looks a little suspicious, you're a conspiracy theorist. If you dare say, odd timing, odd responses, odd stuff going on, you're a conspiracy. If you do not say anything other than, we must destroy the Canadian way of life to preserve the environment, even though it does nothing on a global scale, because Canada, even if you buy into the CO2 emissions bullshit, emits 1.5% of global emissions. And surprise, surprise, when you shut down certain energy production in Canada, you outsource the pollution to China, which represents 27 or 28% of global emissions, more than, I don't know, what is it, the next three combined? So when you cripple Canadian way of life, you outsource the pollution, and not only do you not solve the problem, you exacerbate the problem, but lo and behold, that is the modus operandi of government. So there's been a series of wildfires in Canada, and some of us have hypothesized that they might have been arson. Some of them. No longer shall we need to hypothesize. I will steelman the response to this. This is the latest coming out of Canada. I believe it's close to the latest. What's the date on this article? It was... What kind of news outlet doesn't put the date and time of the bloody article? I say, where the hell is the date and time of this article? It was today. Published yesterday. Great. But how about a date and time? Okay. Quebec man, 37, charged with arson in connection with wildfires in provinces north. I seem to recall a lot of fires there. I seem to recall people saying some of these might be arson. Now, I'm going to steelman at people because we don't yet have definitive evidence that the bad forest fires were caused by arson. But let's just read this article. Quebec provincial police have arrested a man for arson in connection with numerous forest fires that burned earlier this summer in the province's north. Police say a 37-year-old man was scheduled to appear by video conference today in a court in Roberval, Quebec. Roberval, I think, is near like Val d'Or, if I'm not mistaken. facing arson charges. The man is from Chibougamau. By the way, this is going to be a fun cultural lesson for those of you out there who might not know. You know, there's that old, Timbuktu. You know, like when someone says, oh, you're from Timbuktu. There's actually a place on earth called Timbuktu. It's in the desert, I want to say. I'm going to double check that in a second. In Quebec, we have a Quebec equivalent, Chibougamau. Like, that's out in the middle of nowhere. Chibougamau is a place in Quebec. The man from Chibougamau was arrested by members of the provincial police's major crimes unit. Chibougamau Mayor Manon Cyr told Radio-Canada that the suspect allegedly started a series of small fires that were quickly extinguished by firefighters. So the steel man here, people, is, yeah, there's always arsons, but these aren't what caused the fires. And even if it were, it's like that ever-moving goalpost. These weren't the fires that started the fires. These were quickly extinguished. But even if they did start the fires, they were exacerbated by climate change. Absolutely nothing to do with forest management. Absolutely nothing to do with a response or lack thereof. So nothing to see here, move on. Quebec had an unprecedented forest fire season this year with almost 15,000 square kilometers burned. Chibougamau's 7,500 residents were temporarily forced from their homes because of blazes and poor air conditions. Now, things acutely missing from this article. The dude's name, and I'm not looking for any, like in the States, or at least, in certain areas of social media, people look for the name for like racial identity stuff. I want to just, I would like to go through the person's social media history if we can. Why would they not release the name? I'd like to go through the person's social media history to see what, if any, social media posts. Timbuktu, city in Mali. I'd like to know what, if any, social media postings this individual might have posted. But they don't give us that information. I'm sure maybe at some point in time they will. Oh, they're going to say the man was arrested. His fires were not the ones that started the big fires. And even if they were, yada, yada, yada. Okay. There have been multiple incidents now of individuals being arrested for arson as relates to the vicinity of these fires. And one thing is for certain, if something has happened once, it's happened more than once. Very few things only happen once, and the only thing that might only happen once is, immaculate conception. That's the only thing that might only happen once, because the first person to have thought of that as an excuse, what movie was it from where they said, that excuse can only be used once. If something has happened, it has happened before. If they catch one guy for arson, there are many others. Don't need to quantify it. There are more than one other not caught for arson. And it begs the question. They don't give the guy's name. Coming all back to Stephen Guilbeault. Do you guys know that Guilbeault was arrested once upon a time? And I'm not saying this to... I'm not saying this to say once a criminal, always a criminal. Oh, I just want to get the picture of Guilbeault in his orange jumpsuit after having gotten arrested. Stephen Guilbeault 20 years ago was arrested for climate activism. And there's a little something that we've talked about once upon a time on the channel called the political permission slip. Here, I'll just read this. This is Guilbeault, and then we're going to get the picture of him in his jumpsuit. Look at this guy. I mean, this is the face that only a mother can trust. And even then, I doubt the mother trusts the kid. Trust but verify. Early life and education, the son of a butcher. He is of French-Canadian descent, although his maternal grandmother, Edna O'Farrell, who was Irish-Canadian. When he was 5 years old in Latuc, Guilbeault refused to get down from a tree that he had climbed in an effort to block a land developer from clearing wood. The tree was felled a few days later, but the event is cited by Guilbeault as the genesis of his environmental criminality. Oh, I'm sorry, I meant environmental activism. All right, let's go here. Guilbeault, where is his early career and arrest? Here we go. In 1997, just going to highlight this. This is Wikipedia. Yes, take it with a grain of salt. In this case, take it with a grain of pardoning the criminal. It's an amazing thing. One man's political activism is another man's criminality, depending on the political orientation and how the Wikipedia partisan hack website that it is wants to frame it. In 1997, Guilbeault joined Greenpeace Canada. He was put in charge of its climate change division, and he managed the climate and energy campaign before being the organization's Quebec bureau chief in 2000. In 2005, he coordinated the climate campaign for Greenpeace International. On 4 occasions, Guilbeault made headlines for Greenpeace, such as when he scaled the CN Tower in 2001, accompanied by British activist Chris Holden. At the time, it was the tallest. Who gives a crap? After ascending the height of 340 meters, they furled a banner that read, "Canada and Bush Climate Killers." Guilbeault and Holden were arrested and charged with mischief. Did they go to jail for 10 years? What did that trial look like? What did his mischief charge? By the way, actual mischief? Climbing the CN Tower. Not actual mischief? Organizing a protest. Oh, my goodness. Did he get held in jail for 5 months like Pat King for mischief? Did he get held in jail for like 60 days like Tamara Leach? I don't think so. He's got the good mischief. Oh, the girl, yada, yada, yada. Okay, well, what happened here? The stunt cost the CN Tower Corporation an estimated $50,000, and Guilbeault was sentenced to 1 year's probation, and the court ordered him to pay a portion of the costs. Oh, isn't that a shame? That's what he gets. So hold on one second. I want to go Stephen Guilbeault arrest. Let's just get the picture so we can see. Here you go. Look at that guy. Look at that. Yeah, he's a hero, though. He's a hero. And Tamara Lich is the enemy of the people because politics ruins everything, including people's ever-loving minds. The question is this. He was arrested for climate activism, and I'll just call it climate criminality because that's what it is. You might think it's justified criminality. It's criminality. It's not protesting on the sidewalk. It's mischievous criminality. Do you think that people who look up to Stephen Guilbeault might look up to his mischievous criminal activist past and say, that's a good thing? The ends justify the means. If I start a fire here, but the end result is enacting our climate crisis policy, the ends justify the means, I'm a hero? Who the hell knows? I would dare say yes. It's called the political permission slip. When people think they are politically justified, they have the affirmation that whatever they do is righteous, even if it's criminal. They'll do it. Man, they'll burn down buildings. They'll Molotov cocktail police cars if they think it's politically justified. And if that political permission slip is out there, they don't even get a slap on the wrist for their criminality. Is it possible that some liberal climate activists, people who have been brainwashed by Greta Thunberg, are sitting out there saying, Jesus, it's a climate crisis. Even if we have to make the fires, we will make the fires so that we can get the change. We will create victims so that we can enact policy to protect the victims, even if the victims are the ones of our own doing. Is it possible? Oh, do you think he's a little biased? Democracy, necessarily politically biased. He's going to, get elected by the people who agree with his politics. And I don't hold criminality against people for the rest of their lives. And there's, let's just say victimless in that there's monetary compensation or monetary damages for the CN Tower. Scaling a building, flying a flag. I wouldn't make such a big deal of it if they didn't make such a big deal of it when you honked a horn and flew a flag and protested on a street. But is it conceivable that some climate activists in Canada might be either reading a permission slip that they think they have, or might be so despaired they're saying, we're going to die anyhow, I may as well make the climate change policy come sooner than later? It's definitely possible. Oh, okay, we're gonna do a couple more Canadian stuff before we head over to the Rumbles. But before we do that, hold on one second. Did I do the disclaimers? Whatever, you know the disclaimers. These things, Rumble Rants, Super Chats, it's a great way to support the channel if you so choose. The best way, hold on one second. The best way is vivabarneslaw.locals.com, $7 a month, $70 a year. If you get like a year thing up front, tons of exclusive content for supporters only, but there's a massive community of members. You don't even have to become a supporter. The best way, I've ordered mine. They haven't yet come. Oh yeah. I want my mugshot. I want my mugshot shot glass, and I want my mugshot coffee mug. I'll take the shirt's coming as well. VivaFrei.com for the best merch ever. But bear in mind, YouTube takes 30% of Super Chats. Rumble takes 0% of Rumble Rants for the rest of the year. They typically take 20%, so that's it. Flush the turd. I don't often show this flag. Oh, yeah, there we go. Foxtrot Juliet Tango. Someone sent this to me. Not the type of flag that I would hang on the wall, but I keep all fan mail and I keep all fan gifts. There was another one hanging around the desk here somewhere. can't find it. I'll find it later. Okay. We're not done with Canada yet. That's Foxtrot Juliet Tango, which also means F Justin Trudeau. Can your merch deliver to Alberta? I am thinking about the shot glass. I'm not your buddy guy, definitely. The merch company is a Canadian-based company, getpressed.ca, and they do great stuff. Shipping is not ideal. I mean, shipping's not there. Shipping's a problem. So like, save what you need to order and get more than one thing at a time. Okay, we're not done with Canada by a long shot, people. They can block me, but I have my moles. All right. This is crazy. For those of you who don't know, this is not just idle gossip. There's a good reason for this. The ADL has been screaming anti-Semitism. The ADL has been screaming that, they're being attacked. They're being attacked with anti-Semitic backlash because they were promoting an advertiser pause on Twitter because the ADL concluded, unilaterally declared that there was anti-Semitic content on Twitter that was not being removed fast enough to their liking. So they went out and tweeted that advertisers should pause advertising on Twitter. Because. Now, for those of you who haven't heard it, listen to this. They say they're not doing it while admitting that they do it. So this is what happened with the ADL, the fight with Twitter. I talked about it earlier this week, but I'll play this again in case people haven't seen it.
How out there are you, publicly and behind the scenes, talking to advertisers and telling them do not advertise on this platform? Are you doing that?
We are.
Okay. How active are you? Are you doing that? Listen to the answer.
You doing that?
We are not out there publicly or privately talking to advertisers. They will make the decisions that they want to. Frankly, it's true, we did call for a pause.
We're not out there publicly or privately telling advertisers not to advertise. It's true, we did publicly announce and demand a pause.
Back in November after the acquisition. And then since then, since that initial statement, what we are doing...
Just an initial statement. Just since that initial statement, we haven't done anything then. First of all, I don't believe you. Second of all, I don't believe you.
Is engaging with the management of the company, trying to help them make it better.
And by the way, doesn't sound like Elon believes them either. And I presume that Elon probably has the receipts of emails. People saying the ADL has been getting in touch with me, or ADL emails to potential advertisers. Do you know there's anti-Semitic stuff on Twitter? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the record year was 2019, but right after Elon bought the company, we started complaining about anti-Semitism even more. And although we're not publicly and privately asking advertisers to stop advertising, we did put out a warning asking them to pause. Here's the warning.
Make it better. Since that initial statement.
Today, we are joining dozens of other groups to ask advertisers to pause spending, Twitter spending, because we are profoundly concerned about anti-Semitism and hate on the platform. Here's why we're asking advertisers to stop hate for profit. That sounds a lot like what ADL does, although they're a not-for-profit, although with a CEO that makes $1.2 million a year, and stop toxic Twitter. And then they complain about hashtag ban the ADL. It's amazing. Oh, and by the way, when he says we're not out there publicly or privately, above and beyond the first thing, well, if they're not out there doing it, but as they're saying here, a dozen other groups are doing it on our behalf, you know what that's called? Greenblatt, that's called doing indirectly what you claim to not be doing directly, aka doing what you're saying that you're not doing. Oh, we're not doing it. We've got a dozen other groups that are doing it after we've announced this pause in November. Oh, my goodness.
Statement. What we are doing is engaging with the management of the company, trying to help them make it better.
How?
We're engaging, but our other dozens of other people are out there harassing advertisers, telling them to pull it. And oddly enough, you know which ones pulled it? Crap. Do I want to say Volvo? I don't want to besmirch an innocent company. But Pfizer pulled their ads. That's interesting. I sure as hell see a lot of Pfizer ads on Fox News. I wonder what that's about. So that's the ADL complaining about anti-Semitism as a critique, to explain the backlash that they're facing for trying to effectively bankrupt a company through a targeted harassment campaign. It can't be anything less than that. Okay. It seems that some groups might reflexively invoke the anti-Semitism to explain the backlash instead of actually focusing on what they're doing to elicit the backlash. One of those people is a Canadian named Nili Kaplan something, Mirth. I did not know who this person was until they blocked me, and I don't even know why I discovered it. She's I'd say a council person in Ottawa, an elected, I don't know whom, but also a doctor. And this is Dr. Nili Kaplan Mirth, MD's website. Welcome to my family practice and to the Common Ground Collaborative Care. Please note, masks are required for all appointments. For those of you who don't follow her on Twitter, or for those of you who haven't been blocked by Nili Kaplan on Twitter, nothing less than what Lewis Carroll described as the nosy, tyrannical busybody. Is it Lewis Carroll or C.S. Lewis? It's C.S. Lewis. I always get mixed up. Nothing less than what C.S. Lewis described as the most horrendous form of tyrant. The tyrant who feels morally justified in their tyranny. They never sleep. They eat. And even when they eat, they think of creative ways to tyrannize you. And then when you complain about it, Nili Kaplan cries anti-Semitism. She blocked me a long time ago. I don't know that I ever directly interacted with her, but I had to. Someone sent me a tweet this morning, and I just had to. I had to maybe try to drop a little truth bomb. Where's the tweet that I put out here? Has it occurred to you? Don't read this yet. Let's just go right to the. There we go. Okay. Someone sends me this tweet of Nili Kaplan taking to Twitter. Someone's in the chat, whoever knows what her elected official is, as city council person, just let everybody know. I don't know what it is offhand. Nili Kaplan tweeted this out. Imagine turning to a room of colleagues to say their silence as... Okay, hold on. Imagine turning to a room of colleagues, maybe she meant to say to see their silence, as I receive anti-Semitic death threats isn't okay. Oh, imagine turning to a room of colleagues to say their silence as I receive anti-Semitic death threats isn't okay. The only person to respond says they are uncomfortable with the risk I bring them, dismissing that I'm the target as a Jew. So can I please stay off social media? Now, I have been blocked by Nili a long time ago, and I don't know why. I actually don't know why, because I don't think I ever called her any names. I can understand why some people have blocked me. I call people names every now and again. I justify it with fact and evidence. And I definitely highlight when they block me. So it's tough for me to pull up some of Nili's gems, but I was able to. There was a video of Nili Kaplan going around, unhinged, deranged. It is appropriate. This is quoting from her interview in the tweet that you're looking at. Let me just make sure we're looking at the same tweet. And we are. It is inappropriate to say that masks are some form of hardship. They are not. They are not cruelty. Oh, okay. That's factually incorrect now. Let's just skip the cruelty part. They are a form of hardship. They actually cause problems that some people know of. Dentists talking about cavities, mask mouth, maskne, other potentially toxic masks coming out of Quebec. There are confirmed problems that you risk running into from extended, prolonged mask wearing. So, Nili, you're a PhD or whatever the hell you are, you're an MD, you're also wrong. Let's not let being wrong get in the way of a good narrative. It's not a hardship. They're not. Children learning developmental speech patterns, it's not a hardship to have your speech development delayed a year or two. That's not a hardship for you, Nili. Maybe. Let's see. Okay, what else there? Tonight, that's the interview. This clip really exemplifies how Nili KM is such an angry, ignorant voice. That's just one clip. That was an interview. Then you got this one here, just showing you. She's got the 3M 95 mask. Wear your mask. That's profile picture. That's one I could pull up here. This one's amazing. So Volvo cars have complained that I told Saint Laurent Volvo, is that in Montreal? They should be wearing masks. I just got a call from Ottawa police wanting to speak to me because I took a photo of staff without masks. And are they kidding? The crime isn't that I took a photo. The fine is lack of masks. I think she means crime here. This is a woman, a human, with such a lack of introspection. She can't understand why people hate her. And I just have to drop the bomb of all truth bombs. Has it occurred to you, Nilly, that the reason why so many people sincerely loathe you has nothing to do with you being Jewish and only to you being an insufferable, mentally unhinged, ill-informed, tyrannical busybody? And the more you hysterically cry anti-Semitism, the more it legitimizes people's disdain for you. Like, has this thought ever occurred to you? I sit around and I know that there are people on Twitter who they say they don't like me, but I think that they like me. I think they find some engagement, and I think that they still like me. But with every tweet that I put out or don't put out, and I say, okay, how would someone who wants to turn that tweet back on me, turn it back on me? I say, is there a reason why someone might hate me? I can understand why people might dislike me. I ask myself that question every minute of the day, and sometimes I judge myself harder than people out there. These people, they lack introspection, and I'm not saying these people, Jewish women. I'm saying these mentally unhinged, deranged, and I'll dare say psychopaths. I'm sure that if she doesn't suffer from a mental disorder, she suffers from a personality disorder. They lack introspection, and they run around crying anti-Semitism? Nilly. Now, the only way I knew you were Jewish is because you said it. Now that I think, though, Nilly Kaplan, maybe it's an Israeli name, the Nilly. Never would have known in a million years. And here's the spoiler alert. Nobody hates you because you're Jewish. They hate you because you are loathsome. Okay. My brother's in the backdrop. We're going to do... Oh, no, we might have to do this. Oh, we're going to do this over on Rumble, but so that my brother doesn't... Dan...
Oh, here I am. Give me a warning next time. I had my finger in my nose.
Dan, before we go over we're going to go over to Rumble exclusively now to talk about the Pfizer stuff. It's not your findings, but you're definitely following it closer than I am, and I've been piggybacking. I
seem to have packaged it in a way that people can now see it like that.
Yeah, well, dude, you're getting good on Twitter, and you're getting good. You're getting good at delivering the message without using expletives, which is where I might have been 2 years ago.
I'm working on you. We're gonna get you softer there.
You
Dave.
dumb bum. I'm working on you, Dan. 2 years from now, you're gonna be a madman. So, by the way, everybody out there, if you don't know, this is actually my brother, second of five, or the fourth of five kids. I'm the fifth of five. And
I'm busy staring at myself when you talk. Like I got to work on
You got to work on look at the camera. When you look at the camera, I'm not looking at you. When I look at you, this is what it looks like. It looks terrible.
Sorry.
Before we go over to Rumble here, what's your Twitter handle? Who are you?
I put on look at there. You look at the bottom of the screen. It says on X Lion Advocacy.
That's X. I swear to you, I thought that was a wiener with an X. Okay, I'm joking. Now you have to change it. That does look like a dog.
I can't unsee that now.
That says something about me, though. Okay. So yeah, you're a practicing lawyer out of Ontario.
Blushing. Look at that. Practicing lawyer in Ontario, but also an advocate in the wee hours. I do like to advocate about best practices for what I kind of encountered in my role as lawyer in this madness.
Okay, so I'm linking to Rumble here. Everyone, come on over to Rumble because we're going to get into the Pfizer document drop that was hard fought through legal proceedings out of South Africa and the implication that it probably likely has on the West, because what's happened once has happened elsewhere, guaranteed. Dan, so it doesn't change anything here. Everyone, come on over to Rumble or go. Actually, no, hold on a second. Before I do that, come on over to Locals, where we will have an AMA at the end of the show. vivabarneslaw.locals.com, ending on YouTube, and I'll post the highlights later. 3, 2, 1, 457 people. 457